Welcome to today's webinar on adaptive planning and the use of social data to get more return out of your media investment. I'm Martha Nechvatal, Director of Marketing here at Networked Insights, and I'm really excited about today's speakers and what they have to share from both the social data perspective as well as from the perspective of one of the world's leading media agencies, that being Mindshare. So let me introduce you to our speakers. First, we're joined by Ryan Pierce. Ryan is an account executive at Networked Insights, working with clients and agency teams, including Mindshare, on leveraging Kairos technology for real-time planning and knowledge of brands' opportunity audiences. Ryan is joined by Terrence Scroop, Director of Marketing Sciences at Mindshare. Terrence has played a heavy role in making adaptive marketing and paid media a reality for clients with Mindshare's The Loop. Having seen several tools leveraged in the past, his team now has a great appreciation for what it means to have Kairos be a flagship platform moving forward via Group M's partnership with Networked Insights. And thank you, Terrence. And thank you, Ryan. Everyone, please note that throughout today's presentation, if you have any questions, please submit them via the GoToWebinar chat feature or via Twitter to @NetInsights. We will get to as many questions as time allows. And now I'd like to turn it over to Ryan. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, Martha. First, I just want to say welcome and a big thank you to everyone joining us today. As Martha alluded, I'm an account executive here at Networked Insights. We're going to go through a couple of things throughout this session. All of those elements really are particularly regarding how our social analytics platform called Kairos is changing the way brands connect with their audiences, specifically in their planning objectives, how we're able to target and optimize our media investments with our audiences that much more efficiently. Aside from brand planning teams leveraging our tech themselves, our agency partners at Group M have integrated our product to be their flagship platform to use every day for their brand clients on their behalf. So as Martha said, with me today is Terrence, who's going to be adding a little bit color on how Mindshare, who is an agency of Group M, is really relying on our tech now that they have really access to it with our partnership, and how they're going to use it for their planning teams now and moving forward. So I'll let Terrence do a little welcome as well.
Hello, everybody. Happy to join the webinar today and teach you a little bit about adaptive marketing and what we do here at Mindshare. Kairos, as has been said, is an integral part of our adaptive marketing process and what we do in The Loop. And I'm happy to partner with them and happy to teach you a little bit about what we've gained from them.
Thanks, Terrence. So before we even kind of get to the solution, we talk about the tech capabilities. Let's kind of establish first the need that's out there right now, right? So first kind of establish, why there's a need for more accurate adaptive planning. Consumers all over are moving, constantly with regards to their preferences, where they're consuming their data, etc. The answer to this target, and that's always moving, all really starts with accessing your opportunity audience and always learning about them. That concept, that idea of learning about them every single day is really the foundation of all the enhanced planning decisions that come with it. So when I mentioned the phrase opportunity audience, you may have kind of heard that before or hearing it now for the first time. That's really just a certain group of people. This can be, all different types of traits. It's a certain psychographic, a certain lifestyle, or a very kind of general demographic group of people out there. No matter what it is, this is the group of people that's keeping any brand out there up at night. It's who they want to learn everything about. They may know and have an idea of who this person is, or they have no idea. They're just kind of going after the general population, but they want to actually identify and go discover who they are. That's what we mean by an opportunity audience. This is the best group of people for your brand to sell to, whether you have identified who they are or not. So what we do is actually identify with all of our customers exactly that definition, and that's where we go from there to help learn about them holistically. Before I go any further, we kind of talk about the capabilities that the tech is really influencing for planning decisions specifically, I'll give a little context around our data. So what our data is doing, we have something that's called the brain. We're bringing in a lot of conversation, a whole lot. It's about 500 million posts every single day. Those posts are any sort of human conversation out there on the social web. We're getting rid of the spam and coupon data, everything that's non-human we don't want, right? All we want to analyze are consumer thoughts, what consumers are saying out on the social web. And those conversations are coming from 30 million different sources. But when it comes into our system, it's not just a bunch of conversation to go query for like a listening tool that you may have heard about in the past. what we're doing is organizing and analyzing all of that data very, very extensively. Specifically, Kairos is vetting every piece of conversation in 15,000 dimensions. It's squeezing out all of that different context that it could possibly gather. What the person's talking about, and then actually learning about the person behind it. What type of, first off, even just basic demographics like gender, where they might live, age, et cetera, but kind of like what their personality is. It's these things that we do up front that our tech is able to do every minute of every day to make it that much more accurate and easy to go find the people that we want. So we've done this, as services directly in the past. We've had brand customers of ours come to us and say, we have an idea of who we want. We have an idea of who our opportunity audience is. We know nothing about them. A simple, quick example is Under Armour. They came to us and they said their opportunity audience is athletic females. This is the millennial that goes to the gym 3 days a week, wears Lululemon, et cetera, but they know nothing about her. We actually want to go and capture all those people on the social web. These are Twitter handles, these are author IDs, et cetera, and we're going to capture all those conversations, but from there, we're going to learn about them now and going forward. What resonates with them? What content resonates? But specifically for this purpose, how are we going to target them? We're looking at their media channels, their TV shows, their mobile apps, digital sites, et cetera, that they're engaging with and where their eyes are that much more frequently than the average person. So we did that exact concept for Under Armour and several other customers. With Under Armour specifically, they saw a huge increase in market share and actually ended up winning Marketer of the Year that year in particular. And I'll actually move it over to Terrence now with that in mind. When we talk about what we've done with customers, we're now able to have customers have that exact tech capability in their hands. But agency partners such as GroupM, specifically our partner at GroupM, are able to use this every single day for their clients on behalf of those customers.
Yeah, so Kairos is the perfect complement for what we're doing here at Mindshare and in GroupM in terms of really championing adaptive planning. And some people call it adaptive planning. You might also have heard it called agile marketing or agile planning. Really the same idea essentially. The timing of this webinar is really great because I actually just onboarded a whole new crop of associates and taught them about adaptive planning. So I'm really primed to kind of talk about what we're doing and I introduced them to the war room that we call the Loop here at Mindshare. So it's interesting, these associates I was just training are the perfect example of why adaptive planning really has application in the media world today. So all these new associates, they kind of don't know a world where adaptive planning doesn't really apply. They don't know, they barely remember a world before Facebook and without iPhones, and I don't think I'm going to surprise anybody on the call, but the way the consumers interact with media has really dramatically changed in the last 10 years. We are so beholden to our iPhones and our smartphones, and we're so connected via social networks that while people complain about being tracked online and all the information that we can gather about them in this day and age, they also kind of expect it. And certainly we have, for our clients, found great efficiencies, essentially, in really targeting the groups and demographic segments that are most intrigued by our brands, and also whatever else they're investigating or exploring, we can learn from a tool like Kairos and help drive those efficiencies I mentioned for our clients. The great thing about it is that it is so consumer-centric. As Martha and Ryan alluded to before, we've tested a real myriad of different social listening tools and a variety of different insights dashboards, and Kairos really does stand out in a significant way to a large extent because it is focused on consumers, and it does really give us an insight into that segmentation and kind of drill down into what the specific group is talking about and what's trending with them. As opposed to trying to boil the ocean and looking at all of the consumers in this under the same lens, we can kind of divide things up and really focus on what makes the most sense, and that is really a huge power play for us and for our clients. So if you want to move on to the next slide, Ryan. So in terms of how we utilize Kairos, there's some great functionality, and I think that Ryan's going to allude to some of that a little bit later in the presentation. One thing that we find really hugely beneficial is this kind of audience profile that Kairos is maintaining and updating for us on a regular basis. So in order to be adaptive and in order to really align our brands with what's going on in culture, we need to kind of have our finger on the pulse of what is hot and what is being discussed and what are people investigating, essentially. And so these audience profiles, which are updated on a weekly basis, are really hugely beneficial for us to kind of cut through all the clutter and all the noise of the nonsense that people talk about through social channels and other channels, and really focus in a very pinpoint kind of way what are different buckets of activity or genres that they're interested in, and then what is most important and what is kind of boiling to the top the quickest, so that we can really come back to our clients and come back to the various teams within Mindshare and GroupM and execute against those insights very quickly. And again, really just kind of realign our brand position and how consumers are thinking about them, and also be very relevant in the cultural lexicon, which for some of our more established brands is what they are looking for. They want to kind of figure out how they can reinvent themselves and how they can realign what their overall objective and offering is to consumers. And so by executing adaptive marketing, we really help them kind of stay fresh in the consumer's mind.
Thanks, Terrence. So in a second, Terrence is actually going to give a little bit of an example of, specific to the actual uses, how this is benefiting, particular clients, particular categories on certain verticals. First, I'm going to show, what's kind of going behind the scenes, a little screenshot that you just saw there on what Terrence was just speaking to as far as what they're accessing. We're going to go into the platform itself. We're actually going to go into the actual Kairos product and show what that looks like. But what we don't have to do is the work. What Kairos is doing for us is actually analyzing all the conversations as they come in from our audience. So as you can kind of see here, we're looking at a bunch of different interests, kind of dictionaries, all the different categories across a consumer's point of life, the digital and mobile interests and channels that they're really digesting is the example here. But what Kairos is doing is that picking up any possible signal that's showing that a consumer is engaging with this media platform. They're either sharing content from it, they're mentioning it in a favorable way, etc. So it's actually looking at all those millions of conversations coming in from our audience that we want to learn everything about. But it's going to tell us, it's going to compare it to all the other conversations from the general population that's going on. So it's going to nitpick and tell us which channels are resonating that much more than the average consumer. Again, we're going to see this in the actual platform, but this is kind of a look into what's going on behind the scenes of what the brain of Kairos is really doing. Again, not just with specific digital or mobile. We're going to take a look at other media and web channel examples as well, but specifically for TV. If my opportunity audience is actually tuning in to certain channels, certain shows at certain times of the day as well, Kairos is actually going to inform me in real time. I'm not going to get a quarterly report. I'm actually going to check in every single day of every week to see where my opportunity audience is, because again, it's a moving target. They're always going to be changing interests all the time. We can't rely on old research data to actually show us to keep up with our targets. So this is exactly how customers like Mindshare and other direct brand customers as well are using this on an actual daily basis.
Great. So in terms of opportunities gained, one thing that we at Mindshare pride ourselves on is really being a data-centric agency and kind of closing that loop between insights and actions. And that is kind of our mantra when we talk about adaptive planning and about the loop. We want real-time insights to drive real-time actions. What we don't want to do is kind of go off of hunches or make assumptions. And I think the traditional way of measuring the effectiveness and efficiency of our campaigns has changed dramatically. We want to be more responsive. We don't want to do lengthy studies essentially and wait for the results. We want to be responsive and tracking in real time and validate all of the assumptions that we're making in terms of why we're making a decision or why we're realigning a brand or why we're pursuing a particular publisher or activation partner. And so Kairos is really beneficial in that sense. It helps inform our daily sweeps of cultural triggers. We do plan a lot of our campaigns in advance, and we work very closely with our strategy team to basically have a cultural calendar that we are ready to react to when key events happen. And it keeps us timely, and it keeps our brands timely. And it really fosters a nice collaboration and kind of brings everybody to the table. And not just the social team is looking at this tool, but we have the planning team and the buying teams and the analytics and programmatic teams. We all come together and we all find a different use and value in leveraging this tool. And I'll talk a little bit about a great case study of how that came to life on the next slide. But it really has become indispensable for us in terms of basically taking advantage of that real-time segmentation. I think in the past and in my past experience, I've seen different clients spend a huge amount of money on one-time segmentations that they then bank off of for a year or 2 years, and that's not agile enough for us. We know that consumers have very fleeting memories, and they don't necessarily care about what they cared about 2 weeks ago. So we need to constantly be monitoring what is relevant at that moment, and we can't just have those one-off studies every couple months. We need to be able to, in real time, track exactly what is relevant for our consumers. So if you want to move on to the next slide, I'll talk to you a little bit about one example of how we leveraged the loop and adaptive marketing, and it's about the royal baby, so Princess Charlotte. Prior to Duchess Kate getting pregnant and having Princess Charlotte, we had, as a team for Kimberly-Clark and the Huggies brand, decided that we were going to investigate celebrity births and kind of basically surround the next big celebrity birth that happened. Lo and behold, the first person on our list of about 20 or 30 celebrities that we thought might get pregnant in the near future was Duchess Kate. And we had basically built-in triggers, and we had queries ready and running to monitor all of our identified celebrities and execute against the first one that came live. And so when her pregnancy was announced at 3 a.m., we knew it. It was already waiting for us when we got in the next morning, and we'd actually already been informed by some of our other global adaptive planning teams on the other side of the globe that were awake at 3 a.m. when the pregnancy was announced. We'd already basically built out the trigger to execute against that, and we'd already worked with Cafe Mom, the publisher, to basically strike a deal and agree that the next celebrity pregnancy that hit the airwaves, we were going to be able to surround and have sole ownership of and surround with Huggies messages. We basically took this as we've seen a lot of interest essentially in celebrity births and around Kate Middleton, and not so long ago did they get married, and she has been a bit of a style icon, so we knew this was going to really work with our consumer group, which was new moms. So we felt comfortable about pursuing it. When we actually executed and started to surround this content, I think even we were surprised by how popular it was and how much the American consumer was really interested in this royal pregnancy. And we were able to validate that in real time, leveraging both Kairos and some of our other tools and our own performance tracking, just to see the amount of hits and the amount of engagements we were getting for our Huggies ads online, and decide that this was something we wanted to continue to pursue throughout the pregnancy and throughout the birth. So we were able to then ideate and kind of decide other ways that we wanted to basically leverage insights around Kate Middleton and around celebrities and around new moms, and come up with other executions that we brought to life. One of them, actually, we had decided that on the day of the actual birth itself, we were going to Huggies was going to donate a year of diapers, Huggies diapers, I believe, to all of the new moms that gave birth on the same day in a hospital in London, Ohio. And so a great PR opportunity for us. And again, we got a lot of great press around that, and we're able to really interject ourselves into the royal pregnancy story and bank off of essentially the natural tailwinds of this whole cultural phenomenon, and it really benefited our brand in a significant way, and able to validate that through the tools that we were using and through our own analytics and tracking to help basically increase incremental for the Huggies brand.
Great, thanks, Aaron. So next, I'm actually going to go into Kairos itself, the actual product that, as Terrence was describing, in the future and currently, Huggies and other customers of Mindshare, but then also direct brand clients of Network Insights as well. This is exactly what they see when they log in every day. So you're going to get a little preview of what this is. We'd love to, hear from you guys and reach out to kind of hear about, the different brand objectives that are going on, because we're able to tailor exactly what you're going to see for specifically your brand objectives. So what I'm going to go into now, before I physically go into the screen, is actually see what Terrence was kind of showing earlier is an audience profile. So in this case, we've gone out and we've identified your opportunity audience. We've gathered all the Twitter handles, author IDs that match the very niche definition that several different brands care about. Everyone has a very specific DNA that they want to go and learn everything about, being their biggest target. So we've done that now. And then we've built it into our platform, right? So then going forward, and even historical data, we have 13 months of historical data. We're going to track everything they talk about, and it's going to give us a very clean output. I'll go in now, and you'll be able to see kind of what I'm talking about. But you can see my screen now. There we go. So what you're seeing here, customers care about a lot of different things. So in this case, example customer really cares about affluent professionals. This is a person, it doesn't have to be male or female specifically, but it's a person that has, for example, a salary of over $100,000 a year. It can be anything that fits the definition that the customer is going to prescribe, right? But we've now built and we've gone out and we've found these people, and this profile page is going to be the output of all their conversations. It's not just when they're, a certain brand or when they're talking about a certain category. We want to gather all of their consumer thought, right? And we want to learn about all the different categories of their life. So you'll see everything else on here is going to influence content, but what we're specifically going to look at is the top affinity results for what media channels they engage with. This is across a few different categories as we've already talked about. Media and web channels, mobile apps, TV shows, even events and sponsorships. If I want to know when to target at the exact right time in the future that an event and sponsorship is coming up, I know exactly what to invest in and use my dollars more precisely. So what we'll kind of see here, and even from a geo-targeting standpoint, based off volume, where my audience is talking, I actually see both state and local market, all the different markets that my audience is over-indexing in. So when we're able to actually, brands all the time are actually targeting on a very specific geo plan, we're able to enhance that much more effectively without biannual reports and things like that. What we'll actually see here is when we isolate the categories that we care about. In this case, we're all about adaptive planning. And notice that when I'm talking about media and web channels, I'm not going and querying for how many times my audience is talking about New York Times or Wired, things like that. The work is all done already for me. When any signal comes in, when my audience is engaging with this platform or this show, using this mobile app, etc., it's already there. It's already there for me. I'm not having to think about how they talk about it or how they engage for me. These classifiers are already built into our system. I've already thought about all the different ways our audience would give off that signal that they're engaging with this interest. So we're actually seeing here the top things that are resonating this week. And these might change over time, and it might not be that there might not be huge volatility, but at least you're still staying on top of them in stride so that you know when to take action. So when we talk about when things are changing, we're able to see that all the time. This is just showing their top affinity results. Again, this is not based off purely how many times they're engaging with it, because the general population is getting engaged with the very popular media web channels as well, right? So it's actually looking at which media channels is my audience engaging with and favoring that much more than the average consumer. That's really the important key when we talk about these affinity results. These are the metrics that the teams are able to have access to every day when they log in. But instead of just seeing what's top of mind, that's maybe kind of stable week to week until something happens when our consumer wants to shift as far as where they're consuming their content. But I actually want to see where, specifically in media and web, actually see movement. I can see what's changing the most for them. Did something pop up that's making them kind of engage with one channel more than another now? If I want to see why with Fortune Magazine or Fortune Web or the Fortune site digitally, why that's resonating, as far as an engagement standpoint for my audience, I can go and see those results and see why my audience is engaging with them. So this is really what we mean by having those top results really pop out for us in real time. We don't have to wait to learn more. We're going to do it every day. I'm going to go down here for a second. This is analyzing that same type of data, but I'm able to export all this data as well. All of our customers that kind of log in, they can see these affinity results. Again, it's not just volume, but the affinity results is a range of metrics that's actually showing. If it's above 0, that means they're engaging with this thing that much more than the average person. But again, for media and web, across all the different categories of their lives, obviously other categories are more influential as far as content. But for this case, we're going to stick to the media and web channels category. That's being one of how we're going to target, and now we're going to use our investment dollars that much more wisely. But I'm actually seeing a full expanded list, not just our affinity score of how well engaged they are, but really volume. We're actually seeing what are kind of things that are a little bit more unpopular that we wouldn't have thought of elsewhere, and kind of gone with gut. We're seeing those things pop up for us. We're able to see movement as well as far as is my customer changing opinion? Are they changing their engagement behavior week to week? Finally, last thing I'm going to kind of show in the platform before we wrap up and have questions. Say I've got a single media dollar to spend, right? And I actually want to go after 2 different targets. I care about affluent professionals, but specifically dads as well. I want to intersect both, and I want to see where to target my money. We'll talk about the TV category here. What we're able to do in real time is we're gonna hold and capture all the conversations for every opportunity that you care about. You may have one that's very important, We want to go after other ones simultaneously as well. So I'm going to look at this. I'm going to look at this data, every week and check in as far as where my dollars are going to make sure I'm spending it that much more efficiently. Yes, I'm effectively capturing the opportunity lines I care most about, but there are other supplemental ones as well. So this is actually the type of data, not only, again, like Terrence said, their Mindshare customers are benefiting from, but our direct brand clients as well. So now I'll turn it back over to Martha now for questions, and we'll go from there. Thanks, Martha.
Thank you, Ryan. Really interesting stuff. And we've had a few questions submitted. If you on the call would still like to submit a question, we've got just a few more minutes, but go ahead and send it to us through the chat feature on GoToWebinar. But the first one that we got has to do with identifying audiences, and it asks, how are you capturing people that fit the target if they don't openly describe themselves in such as a Twitter bio or anything else?
It's a great question. And we kind of run into that all the time. And when I kind of was referencing what we called the brain earlier, again, we're not just picking up every signal of when a consumer explicitly raises their hand and they said they're of some type of personality, et cetera. We certainly are separate from a social listening camp when everything is already pre-classified and organized. I'll give an example. Anytime a tweet comes in any day from any consumer out there, say a tweet comes in that says, I have to do my homework today because I have a test next week, but first I'm going to go see the new Mission Impossible movie. Any other tool out there is picking up on signals when the consumer elects to explicitly say what they mean. In this case, we know explicitly they're talking about the movie Mission Impossible Rogue Nation that recently came out. It almost kind of takes us on the phone to hear something like that, an actual human brain, to hear those things to start infer other pieces of information that are kind of embedded in there. For example, that this person might be between the ages of 16 and 22. They're in school. They're in some type of education level, whether it be high school or college. And finally, there's some type of even kind of like a procrastinator type of personalities. Everything I just listed are examples of things that we pick up on. Those are signals that we've now built a product that can kind of use its own brain and pick up on all the implicit conversation as well. So we know that consumers on social data, whether it be a tweet in 142 characters or a long-form blog post, they're not always going to elect to tell us exactly who they are. They're not going to put in a bio that they're a student at X university, class of X year, and then they were born in such year to give us their age. We need to find all the implicit ways that they're meaning to kind of raise their hand and give us that signal.
Okay, we have just a few more minutes left, but this question asks, when picking up signals on when an audience is engaging with a potential media platform to buy, how expansively are you looking at different media channels?
Okay, great. I'll actually go back into the platform for that one. Because I'll show, quickly, we're not just kind of tracking the top media channels that are most popular that the general population engages with, whether it be Netflix, Mashable, any other major platform out there. We've expanded our list. If the consumers are talking about it, we've built it into our taxonomy that includes all these interests. So if I go up and I want to search on those things, I'm going to type in media, and it's going to give me all the things that have to do with media and web. Different categories, but we have every single title of every single media and web channel out there. The same thing goes for TV shows and mobile apps, as you said, but it's in a nice, clean audience profile sheet like you saw. It's not just going to be a dozen and pick the top 5. We've expanded out to thousands and thousands of all the different platforms and different sites that consumers would be engaging online to know that we're expansively informing the best possible decisions for our planners.
And we're almost out of time, but I'm going to squeeze in one more question. But first, I'll just remind everybody that this session is being recorded. So if you need to drop off the call, or if you'd like to share this with your colleagues after the call, we will be distributing the recording. So Ryan, the affinity metric on the audience profile page, this listener wants to know, what is a convincing an output that tells a buyer to go ahead and act on it?
Yeah, and Terrence, I believe you and I have talked about this before when we kind of inform the new users, what is this mean and what is this metric. Again, like you saw on the audience profile page, you're not seeing a number. You're not seeing a volume. You're not seeing how much a person interacted or engaged with a media platform to know to buy on it. you're seeing a score. And that specifically, if you want to learn more, we'd love to hear from you. But specifically, that's a Z-score. It ranges from -3 to 3. And a good rule of thumb that the Mindshare users and our brand client users themselves have kind of learned is if they see something on that range, specifically anything that's kind of 0.7 or above, means it's very important. That means that that consumer, not that individual consumer, but that audience, that group of people that I want to know everything about, that I care about, is very, very heavily engaged and visiting and engaging with that platform that much more frequently, very, very much more frequently than the average consumer out there. So those are the kind of, we have various baselines that these users are going on. So whenever we onboard a new customer, we make sure they know all the criteria and all the different signals to look out for when we want to act on something at the opportune moment.
Yeah, and I think the interesting counterpoint to that is also the y-axis in that affinity chart is also has to do with the number of posts and number of volume, because just as important as the affinity itself is, I think, the potential reach that we see. And so something might be trending very hot with a particular consumer group, but it's only a handful of people that are talking about it. That might not be worth the effort for us to pursue necessarily. But if something has a very high score combined with a great number of posts and reach, then that is definitely something we want to go after at Mindshare.
Well, thank you, Terrence. I just want to thank you again and Ryan for giving us this information today, giving us a lot to think about. We are out of time. If anyone has additional questions, feel free to give us a shout. You can see Ryan's email address up there on the screen. And I want to thank you again for joining us. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.